Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining Zoom Room C for the Making It a Reality, Planning for Co-Sheltering in Your Space, Part 1 session. My name is Dana Teal, and I am My Dog is My Home's Animal Care Liaison, as well as the Co-Sheltering Collaborative Administrator. I'm happy to be here with you today to be the session's co-moderator. Joining me today in moderating the session is Melinda. As a reminder, for best viewing, please select Speaker View in the upper right-hand corner of your Zoom window.
Hi, my name is Melinda, a true blood Simpson, prefer to go by Mel. I'm on my ancestral land of the Shawangdas Utula. I'm executive director of DOP Ohio. It's a 501c3 nonprofit for animal welfare. And I also act as a consultant for Ludar Animal Behavior. I'm really excited to be here today to discuss making these co-sheltering facilities a reality.
Thank you. This session is dedicated to the nuts and bolts of getting co-sheltering off the ground in your homeless service program. We have 4 experts with us today to give us real-life examples of programs that are co-sheltering and what lessons they've learned along the way, as well as Emily TRONETTI to give us a little bit more insight into working with behavior professionals in this setting. And presenting first is Emily TRONETTI. She's the co-founder of the Humane Alliance of Rescue Trainers, a nonprofit that matches shelter and rescue organizations with behavior support at no cost. She also owns Coexistence Consulting, which offers animal behavior and welfare consulting, as well as humane education to animal guardians, professionals, and organizations. Emily is currently pursuing her Doctorate of Education in Educational and Professional Practice with a specialization in humane education through Antioch University. And Mel has worked professionally with Emily before, so I'm excited that you guys get to reconnect on this session today.
Yes, absolutely lovely.
Welcome, and when you're ready, you can begin.
Wonderful, thank you. And let me just get my slides ready here.
And Shoshana, you'll need to stop sharing. Yep, perfect.
We're good?
You're good?
Awesome, thank you. So I'm getting a little bit of feedback, so if maybe everyone stay muted if they're not muted already. Okay, so thank you so much for joining. I also appreciate the introductions. In this session, we are going to explore, how important it is to get behavior support for companion animals who are stressed in these environments, and how to find trustworthy help. So as Dana mentioned, my name is Emily TRONETTI. My pronouns are she, her. And I won't kind of give you the full rundown again, but if you'd like to learn more about me or the Humane Alliance of Rescue Trainers, you can check us out with these links, and I'll also share them again at the end of the presentation. So fear, anxiety, and stress, and especially in companion animals, they're much more complex, I think, than many of us humans realize. These emotional states like fear and anxiety can persist, and often these issues don't just go away on their own. Cats and dogs, they don't just grow out of it, or they can't always get over it. These are some of the stories we might tell ourselves, but it's actually very possible that, their fear, anxiety, and stress can get worse if it's left unaddressed. And if you attended the last session about kind of designing for a co-sheltering space, I think it was Katie who mentioned how, stress in animals kind of compound and continue to escalate. And this is definitely something that I've seen, working in animal sheltering in regards to, the longer they're kind of in these environments, their behavior and welfare can kind of degrade and kind of break down, and you can start to see more issues arise. Chronic fear and anxiety can cause even more behavior issues to develop, such as aggressive behaviors. And something I think that's important to mention that I think Katie also mentioned in our last session, chronic stress in other animals can also contribute or lead to physical health issues. I think as humans, we can all relate to this, or we're all aware of this. So this is really important. It's really important to address the behavior that especially behavior that is related to stress in these animals. So, getting help can not only prevent behavior issues from worsening, but it can also improve their mental, emotional, and physical health, which is, of course, not only important for those of us who are working in animal welfare or who are working in an organization or facility that is, caring for these animals. But of course, if this animal does have a guardian or a caretaker, they want this animal to be experiencing the best possible welfare. And oftentimes, their pet's welfare can be very much tied to their own. And so I think this is something that, might not be fully appreciated, especially when we're working in, very stressful environments ourselves. And so how do you know if an animal is experiencing fear, anxiety, and stress? How do you know that they need a professional, that they need professional behavior support? So in case you missed my last session, this is an excellent resource to look to if you need some help answering these questions. This graphic shows fear, anxiety, and stress on a spectrum from green to yellow to red. And if the animal you're caring for is displaying these yellow and red signs or behaviors, this animal needs support. Sometimes that support can come in the form of just changing that environment, in that specific context, like we discussed in my last session briefly. But if you're noticing, the fear or anxiety, despite, if you're still noticing these emotional states persisting, despite, your attempts at, changing the environment or doing the best that you can to change the environment, I think that is a good indication that animal needs some additional support. And so I want to acknowledge that getting behavior support for dogs and cats, especially if you're involved with an organization that has limited resources, can be really challenging. There are often barriers like financial cost and time and availability of staff. And then COVID-19 has put additional stress on all of our organizations and created other sometimes very unpredictable and challenging barriers for us to navigate. And so I do want to just be aware and acknowledge those limitations, those barriers. Luckily, there are a few different ways to get support for companion animals and as well as their people. Hopefully some of these might be an option for you. So one option, is kind of the obvious, right? Hiring a private animal behavior professional, hiring a behavior consultant, for example, or an animal trainer, which are very similar depending on who you're looking at. And some behavior professionals will offer discounts to nonprofits. So that is something to be aware of. And then they also might offer support in a variety of other formats kind of within their business. So, and then these formats can kind of range in terms of cost and time commitment. So for example, they might charge less for virtual consults as opposed to like an in-person consult, or they might offer online classes or workshops at more affordable prices than private sessions. There are also nonprofit organizations that specialize in offering low to no cost behavior support to other nonprofits as well as to individuals. And I will be sharing more information about that towards the end of this presentation. So hang tight. And then finally, we have several organizations and individuals who have created a wealth of behavior resources online. But before anyone runs to Google to start looking for these resources, there's something really important that I want everyone to keep in mind first. So not all behavior supports or not all behavior resources are created equal. Anyone, regardless of their education or experience, can share their opinions about animal behavior on the internet. Now, this probably isn't surprising to anyone here. But what should surprise you is, and I mean, concern us as well, is that much like the internet, the professional fields of animal training and behavior consulting are unregulated. So in most countries, and I think in all of the states at this point, anyone can call themselves a trainer, a behavior consultant, or a behaviorist, and they aren't required to have specific credentials or to meet specific standards. And so because of this, misinformation about animal behavior is pervasive. I mean, even despite, all of these advances that we've had in science about animal behavior and welfare, we still are often using or relying on very outdated information to train and interact and care for our animals. And this includes the use of very harmful training methods, which continue to be pretty common. So when looking for support from a behavior professional, whether that's hiring a professional for private consulting, or even if you're just reading their article or watching their video online, we should be thinking about these questions. Better yet, we should be asking these questions of them directly. So what is their experience training and caring for animals? Where have they received education in animal behavior and training? Do they continue their education? How do they stay up to date with the most recent research in animal behavior and welfare? And what are their professional credentials? We should also ask, what methods and tools do they use to motivate behavior change? How do these methods and tools work? What physically happens to the animal during the process? The reason why I highlight what physically happens is because sometimes trainers will use very interesting words to describe the training method that they're using. Like they'll say things like, what we're using energy to change the dog's behavior. Or, it's all about the communication, but which don't get me wrong, communication is so important, but I want to know what physically is happening to that animal, because sometimes when we hear these very interesting ways of describing how they're training that animal, we might also be seeing the use of training methods that, we might be seeing things physically happen to that dog's body that we might expect if we're talking about training, using just strictly communication. So, what tools are they using? What is happening to that animal's body? I hope that makes sense. And so the other huge thing is, does the animal feel more or less safe as a result of these methods? This is especially important for animals who are already experiencing fear, anxiety, and stress. The last thing we want is to make them feel more unsafe, like depending on or with the methods that we're using to train them. So making sure that, however this trainer or behavior professional is training this animal or interacting with this animal, it needs to be promoting a feeling of safety throughout the entire training session. There's no reason to, be using methods that cause animals to feel unsafe or uncomfortable. And finally, what does the animal's body language look like during the interaction? Now, this one is really important because you can ask someone these questions and they can give you all of the right answers. But at the end of the day, it is the animal, that individual animal, who decides if something is making them feel safe or unsafe. We can say all day, like, oh, this method is totally great and they love it and it'll be really comfortable and it won't bother them. But it's ultimately up to the animal to decide that. And how we determine that is watching their body language. We can claim that something is safe and humane, but again, it's the animal who decides this. This is a mantra I think we need to keep in mind. And so going back to looking at that graphic I shared earlier with body language, or watching the previous session where I talked about it a little bit more, we really need to be educating ourselves. Oh yeah, I actually included the graphic here. That's wonderful. So if we look at this graphic, we can see that we want to be seeing body language that falls into these green categories. These behaviors mean that the animal is feeling safe. They're experiencing positive or at least neutral welfare. Body language from the yellow and red categories here should be avoided at all costs during the training procedure or the training process. If you're working with a dog who's, reactive, so barking and lunging on leash, there might be a moment where another dog surprises you and the dog, reacts, even though that's not your intention. That happens. But intentionally causing the animal to feel, stressed, to intentionally setting up the training process so that they do react. Those are things that we don't want to be doing. We want the animal to feel safe. And we can't teach them that something is safe, that their environment is safe, if they're feeling unsafe during the training process. So training methods that rely on causing discomfort and stress in order to change behavior are not how we support these animals. So if you're hiring a behavior professional, don't hesitate to ask them these very questions. Any reputable behavior professional will happily answer them. And like when I get any questions like this, I'm so excited because I'm like, yeah, they love their animals so much. This is going to be great. A reputable behavior professional will be fully transparent about their methods. Like, I am happy to tell you all of the wonderful things that, we're going to do together with your dog. We're going to have such a good time, or your cat. So if at any point, you're asking these questions and you're feeling unsure, you're feeling like, I don't really know what this means, don't hesitate to keep searching and be sure to keep asking these questions and to keep observing body language as you continue working with that professional. So I hope this gives you a sense of what to look for. And now you might be wondering, where you should start. And so the first thing, that's always really helpful is to check in with your local connections that you trust and ask them who they recommend. And of course, still asking those questions that we talked about. This is a really great way to build your own local network of resources. And it's also, important because that organization, if you get a referral from someone who's local to your community, they're going to understand, the community, which can come into play depending on, what kind of behavior support you need or who you're working with. And then if you're having trouble finding local sources or resources that provide trustworthy behavior support, I put together, through the Humane Alliance of Rescue Trainers, I've put together a Google Doc with the resources that we trust. And this is what's on the slide. And actually, I just realized I think it might be case sensitive. So it's capital HART-help, and help is lowercase. And I will share that link in the chat as soon as I'm done, but it should go to a Google Doc that has a wonderful list of organizations that provide no to low cost behavior support to nonprofits and guardians. You can access the doc using the link on the slide. And like I said, I will add the link to the chat once I'm done talking. And I also just want to point out that this document is a living document. I actually have a whole list of additional resources that I need to still add to it. But what is on there already is I'm just like blown away, honestly, by how many great organizations are out there who are offering behavior support to other nonprofits for either a very low cost or no cost at all. So please check out that document if you need support, or if one of your clients or whomever you're helping through your nonprofit needs support. Okay, so I also just want to highlight, if you are a shelter or rescue, the Humane Alliance of Rescue Trainers, those are the organizations that we currently work with, and we match shelters and rescues, animal shelters and rescues with professional trainers and consultants for no cost behavior support. So you can check out our website if you are interested in learning more. And then if you're here and you're a professional trainer, we are always looking to increase the number of trainers that we have access to, because that's how we help organizations. So definitely check out our website and look into joining us. That's everything. If you want or need additional resources on this topic, or if you'd like a copy of my references list from this presentation, please feel free to contact me through my website. And I would contact me through coexistence.consulting because that will go directly to me. But then if you have questions directly or specifically for the Humane Alliance of Rescue Trainers, please contact us through rescuetrainers.org. Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily. It's great to hear from you again. And my dog as my home can't stress enough how important we think taking animal behavior into consideration is when planning for a co-sheltering program.
All right, so presenting next, we have Dr. Brina Donnelly, joined by Katie Campbell. Brina is the Vice President of Pet Programs for Greater Good Charities. They founded Rescue Rebuild, an animal shelter renovation program in 2006, while being a college biology professor. Teaching is still their passion, and she uses her knowledge of construction and animal welfare to help people by building pet spaces and domestic violence and homeless shelters. Brina and her team have renovated over 170 facilities worldwide and consulted with countless others to help keep people and pets safe. And then Katie Campbell is the Director of Collaboration and Outreach for Red Rover with 10 plus years of experience in the nonprofit world. She has worked with diverse communities and positions ranging from frontline service to management roles. This has included working closely with survivors of domestic violence, as well as under other individuals at risk. And with many nonprofits serving these communities, Katie is a firm believer that more can be accomplished when organizations work together.
Alrighty, Shoshana, are you on and good to share your screen?
I'm trying to.
If not, I have it queued up and I can share.
Give me one sec. I'm getting an error message.
Okay, I'll go ahead and share mine.
Thank you.
Sarah, are you by chance able to share your screen? I don't seem to have permission. Sorry for the technical difficulties here.
I do not have permission, but I've asked for it.
Permission, Dana.
What's that?
It's granted you permission, Dana.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, thank you, guys. You had way less technical difficulties than I would have if I was sharing directly. So awesome. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Excellent. So yeah, as the intro said, we are actually a construction program. We are very much like Habitat for Humanity. We travel all around the world, mostly in the US though, and started renovating animal shelters. And then our screen went green. That's super fun. Are you guys seeing green screen too?
Yes, it's green.
Yes.
It's a very pretty green though.
It is. It is.
Try to reshare once more. I was seeing your normal screen, so.
Oh, you are. Okay. That's awesome. There we go. Now I see it.
Perfect.
Awesome. You can move on to the next slide then. Terrific. So like we said in the intro, you know, we renovate shelters, and, you know, part of the way along our journey, we were in a town, and a domestic violence shelter heard that we were over at an animal shelter, reached out to us and said, you know, we could help so many more people if we just had some kennels. We have a garage. Would that work? And we had never done anything like this. This was back in, I think, like 2010. We said, sure. So we sent half our crew over there, threw some kennels in the garage, and off we went, never thinking more about it, until our partners at Red Rover reached out and said, you know, we'd like to do a little bit more. And so we have started doing more in about 2016. And now you can switch over to the next slide. Our programs offer a ton of different stuff. But what Katie and I found as we were interacting with shelters, was the fear and the uncertainty of how do you begin? What does that nuts and bolts look like? We know we want to accept pets. You all wouldn't be here today if you didn't, realize the importance of co-sheltering humans and their pets together. But it's intimidating. The construction process can be intimidating, and just where to begin with insurance and all the things that we have. And we realized that we needed to start some sort of a resource where we could actually help people go from concept to we have pets in our shelter. And that's really how Don't Forget the Pets began. So now our Don't Forget the Pets program is just kind of a project that we do in collaboration, Greater Good and Red Rover, where we not only build the actual, spaces in domestic violence shelters and homeless shelters, but we help people learn how to do it on their own, because we can't be everywhere. So if you go to our don'tforgetthepets.org, you'll see our training resources. We have a handbook. We also have sample documents, just a lot of really good resources. There's a lot of people out there doing really cool stuff. But really importantly, we offer a virtual training. Sometimes we also do it in person, did it a lot more in person before COVID. But if you go to our upcoming events page, we actually have a list of what's coming up recently. And then you can also look at our coaching program, which is a really cool kind of one-on-one service that we offer, where we'll help you with either the protocols and processes, the fundraising. We can do renderings and designs for you from the construction side, really just kind of walk you through the whole process and take the fear out of it. Next slide. So when you're thinking about designing, I'm sure you all know there are so many different ways to shelter. We've been in shelters like the very first one we were in, I think it was 3 rooms, and people were just housed in bedrooms of an old home, up to some of the amazing homeless shelters that you see in our big urban centers, where it feels kind of more like a sports complex that they house people in. There's a lot of different ways that you can accommodate people. And because of that, there's also a lot of different ways you can accommodate pets. We call each of our designs our pet plans. We're not going to go over number 5 today, because we're going to kind of focus on the human service side of things. But honestly, you should go check out our don'tforgetthepets.org website and see what all these different designs hold. You can flip over to the next slide. What we've kind of learned over the years of talking with shelters, back when we started in 2016, it was convincing shelters that you should really be doing this, that you're not providing adequate service to your human constituents if you're not helping their pets as well. We know all the statistics. You guys, again, wouldn't be here if you didn't know how important it was. But we started realizing that why we were hearing no was because of these very common barriers, and whether it's board of directors really poo-pooing it, or whether it was just staff not buying into the whole process, or fear of animals. These were some of the common barriers that we were hearing in our communications. And then we just realized that we needed to set up our Don't Forget the Pets and our actual construction designs to overcome these common barriers. Next slide. So how we kind of like to attack the common barriers and hurdles and really make it just a very streamlined, easy to follow process is just start at the beginning. When a pet first arrives at your shelter, what do you need to do? And then where do you go from there? So planning for intake and quarantining. We're asked a lot about quarantining. We can talk about it forever. Go check out our website for that. But these are just some very nuts and bolts housing options for it. It can be a crate at intake in a caseworker's office as you're taking in a pet. It can be a fancy credenza like you see in the picture there. There's drop kennels. There's, things that Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts can build for you, like the bottom picture there on the left. It's really neat, all the strategies. So moving away from like those common intake and doggy daycare options, allergies, we get asked about allergies a lot. It's a realistic concern, I get it, but it's pretty easy to mitigate. Katie and I always joke, because her and I are both incredible allergy sufferers, and yet we both live with pets and love them. It's really all about managing, very, very simple things. So people ask all the time, oh, my architect or my contractor said we need to get an entire system-wide HEPA filtration system. And I would say, if you're running a vet clinic or you're running a huge animal shelter, that's probably a really smart thing to do. But if you're in a house or you're in a small situation, manage what you can manage and just be comfortable with, try it. If it doesn't work great, try the next thing, and keep escalating. But you can do as simple as portable HEPA filtration systems that you can buy on Amazon for under $300, like that portable filter system. One of the things we're asked about is, well, what do you do with pet-friendly rooms? You don't want to set rooms aside because you don't ever want to keep somebody out of a service because you're setting something aside for a family or a pet that might come in. So what we recommend is having rooms that maybe 1 or 2 rooms in your shelter that will never have pets. And if you're really concerned about allergies, then get a separate HVAC, a heating cooling system for that 1 or 2 rooms. They're very inexpensive. That model that I have a picture of there is just a mini split air. You can order them online. They're very easy to install. We do it all the time. So that's kind of the 2 extremes of controlling the environment and controlling the air. But when it really comes down to it, it's just really clean. Keep everything clean. Make it easy to clean. So I have that flooring picture there. That's a product called LVT. It's just luxury vinyl tile or luxury vinyl plank. It clicks together like the old school laminate, but it's a plastic vinyl product. So it is waterproof. It is scratch proof. Katie gets mad at me when I say this, but it's 10-year-old boy proof. So in addition to building for your pets, you're also building for your kiddos that tend to be kind of hard on all the things, as we say. It's a great product, easy to clean. And then another cleaning tip is separate laundry. It's a really simple step, but when you think about your allergens, it's going to be saliva and dander for the most part. Easy, just put 2 different laundry units in there, or sets of laundry units, I should say, one for your pet parents and one for your non-pet parents. Super simple. All right, next slide. Okay, so another allergy tip is also fairly simple, and at least in practical paper situations, is your flow. If you know you're going to have allergy sufferers, because they're everywhere, design your flow so that your pet bedrooms aren't directly across from your kitchen and your living room, where that fur blowing out there is going to certainly come in contact with some kid who's sitting on the floor in the kitchen while their parents, cook for them. Obviously, this is a much more of a house style sheltering. So I wanted to go with the smallest flow constriction possible. If at all possible, put your pet rooms towards the end, put them near a door. Don't put them near common bathrooms, common kitchen and living room spaces. Same is kind of true when you're thinking outside, not just in terms of allergies and contact, but also flow for, keeping kids and non-pet owning people kind of in their own track, in their own flow of pattern. So lots of the smaller shelters that we're in, both homeless and domestic violence, they have, small footprints, whether it's urban or suburban. And so you'll see very often, a kid playground or jungle gym set next to a doggy play yard or a place where parents are walking their pets to let them go to the bathroom. Consider having individual pet relief areas like that top left picture where, maybe a pet room goes right out into a pet relief area. Also great for doggy daycare then. You don't need to worry about it. The pet can come and go potty as they need to. Not that hard. I don't think I've ever lived in a house where I haven't blown a hole in some wall to put in a dog door because I do not like going out in our cold New England winters to walk a dog. I'm a wimp. Another thing when you're thinking of flow of traffic outside is kids and dogs love each other. They're going to try to put their hands through the chain link. And even the best dogs get a little nervous when some weird thing comes shimmying through a chain link fence at their face. So definitely put some sort of barrier up. You can do the slots like I have in that top picture that just slide in like you see at like ball fields. Or if you want the aesthetic, you can go for the rolled bamboo like you see there. We also talked a bit, you heard in other speakers where they say in urban spaces, space is tight. Pets don't really need a ton of space. They like the stimulation. They like the smells. They like the enrichment. Even the smallest spaces like that tiny play yard you're seeing in the bottom there is a great way to get pets outside, get them fresh air, get them a little romper room time. Next slide. Enrichment. So kind of moving from that play yard enrichment space, you're going to have different footprints of your property. Sometimes you can have the space to put in a huge, 25 foot by 25 foot play yard like you'd have in your backyard or something. We've done things in urban settings where, the space that you always see between the sidewalk and your building, it might only be like 3 feet wide. Fence that in. That becomes a great ball tossing yard. Get one of those chuckets like you see in the top picture there. And, dogs are really easy to please, but you've got to give them that enrichment. So when they're outside, give them the fresh air and the sniffies. When they're inside, give them toys, a nice soft bed. For the cats and their enrichment, for them, it's a dual purpose. They like to perch. They like to look out the window. They like the security of being off the floor. Again, Katie would yell at me, but I just like to think of it as cats being superior to the rest of us. They like to sit above us and lord from on high. Get them up off the ground. Even if they're with their own family, the stress of moving and the stress of being in a new situation is very likely going to cause them to have some sort of stress related, like little weepy eyes or sad, or they're going to try to hide. Give them a place to hide. Let them be a cat. As far as the real stress, though, lots of the pets, especially those that come in from, a domestic violence situation, might come in with some forms of PTSD. Katie and I like to say, take your judgment hat off, because a dog could come in and it could be maybe going to the bathroom inside, or a cat could. And instead of being mad or thinking that that person is not training their pet well, remember that it might just be a stress thing, and make sure that you're doing everything in your design to make them as unstressed as you possibly can. So it can be something as simple as soothing music, not putting them in a high traffic area, simple things like cleaning with pleasing scents, like we love Meyer's lavender and stuff like that. So just really reach out to your animal welfare experts and see, what could I be doing that's simple? It could be something as simple as throw chicken broth into like a little container, and they get little popsicles so that they feel like they're being enriched and soothed, and just having something to do to take their mind off the things. Next slide. Human animal bond. You guys wouldn't be here again if you didn't know the importance of the human animal bond. I don't care what type of setting you're housing your pets in once you get them to your shelter. There needs to be a space inside, if you at all possibly can, for pet parents to spend time with their pets. The bedrooms in most shelters are very small, and the pet needs different places. They need to see different spaces inside and out. You don't need to have a huge space. The one on top there, oh gosh, Emily's probably freaking out about my non-fear colors. This was an old design, Emily, don't yell at me. Yes, we usually go soothing colors. Orange is my favorite though, guys. I'm sorry. But this was a tiny closet that I was like, I can totally turn that into a cat space. So there's little cat cages over here, but then a pet parent could come in, get their kitty out of there, spend time. There's a TV that you can't see. It's got the perches, it's got storage under the benches, but I swear I could probably touch either side of those walls, and I'm not a tall person. Basements, also very underutilized spaces. We usually think of them as creepy dungeons. You can turn a creepy dungeon into a nice little pet visitation space. It's not going to be ideal for a housing room because the ceilings are really low, but it's a great place for pups to spend time with their parents inside. Okay, next, I guess we are ready to jump. Oh, I almost forgot the most important one for Katie, the storage things. She loves to say, if you build it, they will come. Lots of times when you're thinking of what you need and how will you plan for your pets, really, honestly, people are going to be so excited in your community that you're doing things for both humans and pets. If you just get the word out on social, or you add to your wish list, you are going to get so many pet donations that you will just be shocked. So plan for that storage. Also a good place, that bottom picture, that's actually a washer and dryer off there. So that's where the shelter in Kansas City put their pet washer and dryer. Right on. I think we're ready for the next one. There we go. So now we're getting into the pet plans. So all those common elements that we just talked about really kind of blend in with no matter which strategy you're going to implement to house your pets. So the next are really like, where are they staying? So pet plan one, we love, that is individual living units. So if your shelter is small rooms, whether they're bunk beds and you have multiple, clients in one room or not, don't be shy about that. We have lots of examples of shelters that we can put you in touch with where they have a non-pet owner with a pet owner sharing space. It actually works out really well. I don't have the time to go into it now. Join us for one of our trainings. We'll talk about it a bunch. But individual units are great. The onus of the care will remain on the pet parent. They're very low cost because really, what are you doing? You might be hiding some nasty old wooden floors with some LVT flooring that's going to be waterproof. You might want to caulk where your molding goes in. You might want to change out your old wood molding for some nice PVC molding that pets aren't, so easy to clean. Pets aren't going to get them all like nasty and grody or whatever. Throw some shelves on the wall for the cats to have their enrichment. Throw a dog bed down. And really, it doesn't need to be complicated, and you're done. You just have to be mindful. Be mindful of how are they going to go outside? What is that flow of traffic? So go back to those things and you're good. I think we're good. Let's move to the next pet plan. Pet Plan 2, also one of my faves, mainly just because I'm a dork. Oh, you're not seeing all the, there's actually 3 different pictures here, probably because you guys are in a PDF. Oh, that's sad. Well, you guys will get the slides. Hopefully they send them to you as a PowerPoint. So in the first version, there was another picture over this that you can actually make cubicles. I will make sure that they get a copy of it in PowerPoint so you can see them, because a lot of you guys use the communal floor plan as your housing strategy. So you can actually make cubicles where you have one bed in there. If you make them out of sheetrock, so the wall has some dimension to it, you can run electric in it, you can have charging stations, you can do pocket gates so that you still have that security of being able to see into the cubbies while providing some privacy. You can throw a crate into the little cubby area. You know, there's just a lot you can do with it. Raise the bed a little bit, get storage underneath it. It's a really great way to like tight space, lots of like opportunities. You can also, if you don't want to go the cubbies out of sheetrock and you want to go a little cheaper or easier, you can do them out of like regular like cubicle that you'd see in an office kind of a system, and put a kid gate in front of them. So whether you're gating them in or whether you're utilizing something like this, where maybe you've just removed a bottom bunk bed and now put a crate under there for a dog to stay in, you want to maintain control. So when you're dealing with communal living spaces, the name of the game is, what are your protocols? I know that word is like really not very trauma-informed care. We don't like the protocols, but maybe think of it as just guidelines for how you're going to ask your residents to deal with their pets. A good trick for maintaining control of pets in a communal space like this is utilizing one of those runner's leashes in the top. So it's a great way to keep a dog tethered to their human, shorten it up a little bit. That's actually for running, so it's longer. But it's a great way for people to still have the freedom of their hands, but have their dog tethered for when they need to, you know, just go grab something quickly within the shelter or just walk outside. When you do this kind of living style, though, you definitely need to have a plan for doggy daycare. That can look like a lot of things like I showed you, but people are going to need to go to work. People are going to need to go to appointments to get, you know, all their self situated to get back on track. So plan for that for certain. All right, I think we can move to the next one. Existing spaces. So now you're not actually going to be keeping the pet with, this is another one that's layered. That's so funny. I'm so sorry, you guys. This is what you get for having animation in your slides, right? Underneath there is basically where we just took another closet, a little bit larger closet, and converted it into this cat space that you see on the bottom here. Lots of shelters have closet spaces that are already heated and cooled. And so why not use them? You know, you don't need to, I always say, keep your Christmas ornaments or your copy paper in a heated and cooled space. Get that into a shed, utilize that space for pets. It's really a nice way to keep your costs low. That's all right. Don't worry about it. So when you do these open spaces, the nice thing about converting this closet, like in this example we designed here, is it's actually that human animal bond visitation space, plus the kitties can live in these cages. Lots of times we advocate for let the cats out, let them have their space, let them be cats. But obviously that can only happen if you have cats that have been spayed and neutered. So keep that in mind, that that's part of your process, your guidelines, that kitty can only be out with other kitties if it's, you know, if it's been spayed or neutered, no extra kitties. All right, jump to the next one for me, because I think that's an existing space. So that's just a garage design we did. So we went to a shelter, they had a garage. We divided it in half. We did the front half in dog kennels. The back half was the visitation space. Those are indoor, outdoor kennels. So it was really nice for the pets. The one thing I would say about this, as far as the kind of pros and cons, is when people come into shelter, you all are aware of this. There tends to be that kind of, whew, you know, I call it the decompression time, when they're like, we have a roof over our head, we're safe, you know. And as part of that, we hear that sometimes the pet parents, you know, might get a little bit of the not out of sight, out of mind, but they need that break. And so when you have the pets not in the room with the pet parent, have somebody on your staff that's just kind of like guardian angel, you know, making sure that the pets get the water, the food they need, that they're getting out, getting, you know, into a play yard if you have access to one, getting walked, something. Great time for collaboration. Maybe you work with an animal welfare partner that sends over volunteers. There's lots of ways to get creative here. Also, people always ask me, do the kennels need to be that fancy? Absolutely not. Those are very expensive kennels. They don't need to be that fancy. There's definitely more economical ways to go. Come to one of our trainings. We can talk about it. Reach out to us after this. All right, next slide. I think we're on our last one. Yes, we're last one. Oh, this is just super sad, you guys. I wonder if you guys can go in there and just delete that top slide, that top picture. Are you in a PDF?
I am in a PDF.
You are. That's so sad.
If you want,
Okay.
want me to interrupt, I can move over to the Google Slides
Oh,
version.
that'll take too much time. I'm already probably over. I'm sorry. So don't even worry about it. Basically, guys, the new spaces, they can be as expensive and as dramatic as you want them to be. The one I'm showing you here is actually, it's a shed. We put 2 sheds together, made one ADA compliant even. But basically, you can take sheds, heat them and cool them. You have to. You can see here, I have another one of those little mini split airs up there, heating and cooling. No matter where you are in the country, that needs to be a thing. Definitely get them insulated so you save money on it. There's a pet relief area associated with each of these little we call them pet retreat spaces. You've got that LVT flooring, so it's a really good, it's not slippery, it's easy to clean. The wall covering is a plastic vinyl wall covering, so it's very easy to clean and sterilize. PVC floor baseboards. You just keep everything very, very easy to clean, and you'll be fine with, wear and tear and maintenance. Other than that, we're basically now again in a really cool design where you can share that visitation space with the pet's actual living space. It keeps them out of kennels, which I love, allows for that human animal bond, which we love. So all in all, it's a great win-win, but it is more expensive than just renovating an existing space. I think we can move on to the next. It should be just skip this one. Guys, this was there to remind me that collaboration is, as Katie Campbell would say, key. Work with your animal welfare partners. There's a lot. They can be a plan B for you. Come join us. We'll talk more about it. So the last slide for you guys is what do you do to get it started? Go back to that last one for me. The others are just for them for later. So when you get it started, first thing you've got to do is call the building department and the zoning department, figure out, do you have any restrictions about how many pets you can have on that particular piece of property that you're trying to have pets in? Make sure you're not in a historical society area. If you're in a historic area, you might have color restrictions, fencing restrictions, all sorts of things. If you're a homeless service provider that caters only to minors that do not have guardians with them on site, CPS will definitely have things to say about pets and animals. And then insurance. You heard during, Secretary Castro's talk this morning, lots of questions popped up about insurance. Join us for one of our talks. We'll talk about it. It is really not that challenging. It makes us so sad when we hear that you're having trouble with insurance. It's not that challenging. Other things to keep in mind are what not to say to your building officials. When you call them, don't be like, I want to add kennels, because that's what that building is on the bottom. That is a commercial kennel facility. You're not building one of those, are you? No. So don't say that word, and you won't scare them and they won't scare you. Other than that, people ask us lots of questions about what size do you need to go, like how many rooms, all that. 10% is our general target. We can talk a lot more about that if you join us. And then, don't be afraid. Reach out to a contractor. They're going to have some good ideas, but you know what is best for you. You know what you're going to need. So trust yourself and be comfortable, as we say, operating in the gray. Try something else. Keep trying. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time. And then I guess the last 2 slides, guys, are just for your reference. We have grants, both of our organizations do. We already talked about our Don't Forget the Pets. These are our individual organization websites where our individual granting opportunities are, and lots of good other resource information. Next slide, I think, is just our contact info, so you can reach out to us and bug us about all the things. And please do. I think that's it, guys. Pretty sure. Yeah. Awesome.
Great. Thank you so much. You have so much experience, and I think everybody learned a lot, and probably you'll get a lot of feedback.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks for having us.
Our next speaker is Kelsey Madigan. Kelsey is the Director of Interim Housing for LA Family Housing. She received her master's degree in social work from the University of Michigan and is licensed as a clinical social worker in the state of California. She oversees the programmatic operations and program development at 11 of LA Family Housing's family and individual adult interim housing sites. Kelsey provides consultation and best practices for design and program implementation for interim housing sites nationwide, which includes advocacy and implementation of pet policy. She also utilizes her clinical background to assist LA Family Housing's real estate development department in taking a trauma-informed care approach when informing design and building of new interim housing sites. We're very lucky to have you today, Kelsey. Thank you for joining us, and give me a second to get your slides up and then you can begin.
Awesome, thank you. And I'm super happy to be following Bryn now because we work together on our pet housing at the Willows, which is what we're going to talk about. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into pet policy and things like that. So I'm super excited to be on the same call as Brynna.
Yes, it's a small world. All right, can you all see my screen okay?
Awesome, and we can just skip to the next slide. I'll start there. Thank you. So we're going to talk a little bit about interim housing. So what is interim housing, and especially what does it look like in Los Angeles County now after we expanded so much? And then with that change in programmatic design for interim housing, how are we managing pets on site? How are we creating buildings to make sure that pets on site are safe, comfortable, and can be with their companions and are not turned away because of their, because they're an animal. So interim housing is a supportive, low barrier environment enriched with supportive services designed to meet the needs of participants who are experiencing homelessness. We do not turn any participant away because they don't have a job, because they are not sober. So we treat everybody no matter what type of barrier they're experiencing. We provide a housing focused, safe, and supportive 24-hour crisis housing environment while working with housing navigators and/or interim housing staff to locate, apply for, and obtain permanent housing. So we have housing navigators, or probably more commonly known as case managers on site, mental health staff on site, and our crisis housing participant coordinator staff on site 24/7. With our participants, and we operate a time-limited program with a maximum stay of up to 90 days once they're connected with housing navigation services. However, we do work with participants for extensions to ensure that we are housing people directly out of interim housing should they not find housing within the first 90 days of our program. The types of interim housing are quite different. So we have all different types of interim housing with LA Family Housing. We have single family homes. We have large congregate sites that have like 47 different rooms, and there's between 3 to 10 participants in each room. We operate some project home key sites, which are motels that are now operated as shelter interim housing sites for individuals and families. And then we also have contracts with several different types of motels. So as we're thinking about and talking about how to best maintain participants with their pets, we're thinking about it in this way of managing the expectations for every different type of site that we have. Next slide. So today we're going to talk about the Willows. This is one of our interim housing sites, our newest interim housing site that LA Family Housing had the chance to design with the city and county of Los Angeles. And it's our first site that we were able to do little cat and dog housing, but we also wanted to talk about our outdoor spaces as well, and the importance of creating a dynamic where pets are accepted inside of our sites. And next slide. So this is kind of the building like mock-up. We have a ton of outdoor space. This used to, all of this white area used to be a parking lot. So we took a ton of the parking lot and changed it into a outdoor space for people and pets. There's a little dog run here. There's a dog washing station as well. And then you can see in half of the site is all light blue, dark blue. That is the male identifying area for our participants, and it's separated by a hallway, and then our female identifying participants that are housed in that area. All of the orange spots are community spaces. So participants can hang out with each other. They can bring their pets in these areas to kind of roam around and things like that. And then these two purple areas, we had a limited space to do cat and dog housing. So Brenna really worked with us to create some kennels in there that would be really helpful for our participants. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but this is our companion pet housing in the purple. So just like our participants, we wanted to create a safe space for our pets as well, should our participants need to go to like a dental appointment and they can't bring their 2 cats or things like that. And next slide. This is kind of the inside of the building. It shows the pods, and these are just like Brenna talked about earlier. So the pods are very similar to the things that she talked about with little plug-in stations. There's USB little plug-in things there. It creates a little private space so the participant can actually have their animal or even their kennel or crate underneath the bed if it's smaller, or right next to the bed if they need. As you can see right in the top right bubble, it has this little storage unit kind of on the side that you can see to the left, and right under there we can put a little kennel for the participant to co-sleep with their animal. And always our recommendation is that the animal stays with the participant when they're on site. So our dog and cat housing are just for when participants need to leave site and they need to go to work and they can't bring their emotional support animal with them. But these pods are specifically created to ensure that we have space for the animal right next to the participant should they choose. Also, we do have like longer leashes for some cats who are able to be on leashes. We connect them to tie them to the bed, and they're like roaming on all the pods and kind of like jumping from pod to pod, which is amazing at our sites, and our participants love it. To the left top circle, you can see the community spaces that we have, and these community spaces are all open to participants and pets. They can come in here, put their dog on the couch, watch TV together, and do some of those things. It was really important for us to create a ton of different community spaces around the site to reduce participants hanging out outside on the sidewalk or having to go to a park to hang out with their animal. We wanted to create those spaces here. And we can go to the next slide. Thank you. And these are we had like a little teeny tiny space to work with. And then Brenna was able to assist us with getting little kennels for cats and then also for dogs. So these are little areas where our participants, like we talked about, can leave their animal while they're going to the store, when they're going to pick up food, when they're going to going to work and things like that. The animals, and sometimes when the animals get along, we just like let them play outside or in here, or we leave them in the dog run. One of our staff, kind of assists with watching them with other participants. So that has been really helpful for us. Also, it helps with the participants' trauma. So when someone is on the street for a long period of time, they're really worried about losing their animal, about waking up and someone stole their animal, about their animal running away. So this provides a locked, safe space for when a participant is offsite, they can have their dog or cat here and kind of trust that our team is not just, letting them out, or they're not going to be there when they come back. So that assists the participant also in their anxiety about having an animal in a very, very congregate space. And next slide. So why pets in interim housing? And this is a picture of one of our little dogs that we've had on site for a really long time. Her name's Missy. So the simple act of petting animals releases an automatic relaxation response. It's not just about the participant and their pet staying together. It's also about the participant. Oh yeah, and Christy, yeah, she took this photo at one of her events where we brought a lot of services onto the site. It's not just about the participant that or the participant connection to that animal. The entire community becomes connected to the animal. The entire community has a kind of release when they are when they're playing with the animals, when they're being asked to watch the animal by another participant. So that is very, very important. It lowers anxiety and helps people relax, reduces loneliness. acts as a catalyst in the therapy process. So many times we've seen pets help participants make friends. People are reaching down to pet their dog or their cat, and then they're, striking up a conversation, and this person could be really shy usually. So it helps break the ice in participants coming into interim housing, especially after they've been on the street for a very long time. Also, we have, and as I'm talking, I know I use dogs and cats a lot. However, we've also have birds, we also have turtles, we also have fish, we have chickens and roosters and guinea pigs and all of these things at our sites as well. So if we're able to accommodate any type of pet, we will. At one of our family sites, we have this little guinea pig, and the name is Problem, and its Problem is a hit at the site. So for children with autism, we're engaged in significantly greater use of language as well as social interaction in their therapy sessions that incorporated animals compared to people who didn't incorporate animals in their therapy sessions for children with autism. And then also for physical health, so lowers blood pressure and improves cardiovascular health. Breathing slows in those who are anxious, releases many hormones, which has the same effect of chocolate, which is interesting as well. And next slide. So why pet housing? Aside from all of those reasons, participants may need to go to appointments or work and cannot bring their animal, like we kind of discussed earlier. There has been a huge expansion of very, very congregate interim housing sites in Los Angeles County. So it's very, very important that as we're building these, having these large tented sites or warehouses that we're taking over, and we can't have each person in a separate room, or each, 3 to 5 people in a separate room for a lot of our newer sites, we have to think about pet housing in a different way. And participants aren't able to just, let their cats roam around the entire site. So what do we do to meet people in the middle to make sure that their animal is not a barrier into housing? Also, participants are less likely to turn down interim housing. If you ask a participant to come into interim housing without their pet, they will most likely turn it down, which is what we do not want to happen. We want to make sure that we're very low barrier. And then staff monitoring of pets in pet housing is much easier when pet is unaccompanied. So if an animal is just tied to somebody's bed or left in a room or something like that, it's a lot more difficult for our staff to monitor. And then also participant and pet safety and security. Next slide. So in this slide, this is from the Willows as well. And Britta and her team actually assisted us build this amazing, huge dog run at one of our other sites, the Arroyo as well. And the dogs are like out there 24/7 with the participants. It's really important for us to, and this one is at the Willows, but it's very important for us to include pet-friendly spaces right next to areas that participants hang out in. So this dog run and wash station is located right outside next to a large space that participants can hang out. They can eat, they can talk to their friends and things like that. So that was very, very important to us while thinking about participants and pets at a lot of our sites. And next slide. So when talking, and this is at one of our other sites where the animals can be right next to the pot, as you can see, thinking about harm reduction, low barrier housing model and trauma-informed care, we apply these tenets of care to our system in general, but we specifically, and our participants, but we also apply these tenets of care to our interim housing pets. We can use harm reduction in several different ways. So matching animals with like animals, making sure we don't have 2 cats and then 3 dogs in one room or in the same area. We do meet and greets between pets and new roommates when we have intakes. We teach non-pet parents how to interact with animals. So sometimes we have little meetings about, okay, an animal can seem like they're aggressive. However, we have to make sure we're approaching them in this specific way and teach other people how to really interact with pets appropriately. Pet policy meetings to reestablish expectations, and then also working with the participant to reduce pet negative behavior. Sometimes we do training events for the participants, or we have in the past, to ensure that participants are also able to manage their animal in such a congregate site where they may be very anxious. For our low barrier model, we accept all breeds, types of pets if we're able to accommodate them. Of course, if a participant is like, I have 3 mini horses and I need to bring them with me, we would do the best to accommodate maybe 1 mini horse. No, I'm just kidding. But we would accommodate whatever we could for that participant. We accept multiple animals for each participant if we have the capacity to do it. And then for our trauma-informed care tenet of care, we ensure that we as staff and then also our participants understand pet behavior and understand anxieties of animals and when you should back away compared to when you're being welcomed by the animal to pet them, familiarizing pets with the site and participants, because congregate environments can be very overwhelming to everyone. And then understanding pet and trauma reactions when in new congregate environment. And I know we're almost at the end, so I'll go through these ones pretty quickly. If we can go to the next slide. Pet policy agreement. So we do assist participants with getting emotional support animal letters. We extended this to 40 days because of a different policy change in California. Vaccinations, participant expectation to be able to control the animal, to make sure everybody's safe, and then to take appropriate care of the animal. We let the participant know that if they, just like we would call, DCFS or APS for a participant who is being neglected or abused, we let the participant know that we'll do whatever it takes to assist them in taking care of their animal should they need assistance, or connecting to the right resources. And then we ask everybody for an identified emergency contact person. If a participant goes to the hospital and their animal is left on site, who is the next person that we can call to assist with care of the animal, so it doesn't have to go to foster, although sometimes that happens, or it doesn't have to go to a shelter. We want to make sure that we're maintaining the animal appropriately on site. And next slide. And then what happens when concerns arise? So if there's pet neglect or abuse going on, we support participant to first, of course, implement care strategies. A lot of our participants that we work with are experiencing serious mental health or substance use concerns, physical health barriers. We try and support them in the best way possible. Pet behavior, sometimes pets are, anxious on site and they might become aggressive, or they might try and bite other participants or staff or other pets. We understand pet triggers. We can do training if possible. We move the pet into a different physical space. We do all the things that we would do for a participant should they should they not be able to or have difficulty in following some of our standards. We do the same exact thing for pets to support them. And then we can skip the pet care one and go to the next slide. And this is how a site can prepare for pets. We do have amazing pet partners, including Christy, who provides like a ton of connection to vet care, a ton of connection to food and anything the animal needs, beds, kennels, anything, which is super, super, super important. So make sure we have all the partners that are necessary. So we work with People and Pets Better Together Forever a ton, and Christy. Make sure staff are on board, understand the limitations of your space and adapt to your space as best as you can. And then of course, create a pet policy with staff and participant input to make sure that we're appropriately supporting the pets at the site with your team. And I think that's it. My next slide is questions, but I know we have a group question panel coming up.
Thank you so much for sharing. That was really great information and a model program for everyone. We unfortunately don't have much in the way of time for Q&A. We're supposed to end the session in a couple of minutes. If there are any burning questions that we can cover in a couple minutes time, we can check in with the chat. Let's see if I can pull up any real quick. Mel, did you see anything come up in the chat that we can maybe address in a minute and 30 seconds?
I think for the most part, the team was able to answer most of these things. My personal questions, I can absolutely just email if that's okay. But yeah, it looks like everything was pretty much answered as we went.
Perfect. Great. Well, thank you so much for your flexibility with our tech issues. And for sure, we will make sure
Oh.
that your slides as intended, Brenna,
Mhm.
with your multiple overlays will be provided. I swear I did do a tech rehearsal and it worked on my PDF, not real time. So I don't know what happened, but
Nature of tech.
we're going to be going back to the main room and then another break. And then Carol will kind of disperse us. So the room will be closing and I'll see you all again in a bit.